Listen, I know I may be a little bit of an internet cat lady, but I ain't no Carol goddamn Baskin, and I'm not prepared to handle this. Hello again, everyone. It's me, Madam Macabre, and I'm back with another video. I know, in my last one I mentioned not having any more stories, but you know what? I listened to your feedback, and you guys are right. I don't want to fully stop doing story times. I do have a handful that I haven't shared with you yet, and I'll make a little bit of a deal, a barter with you guys. I'll keep giving you story times, but I'm gonna slow down a bit. I'm gonna chill, if you will. Winter humor. You know, it's all downhill from here. Ski jokes? No. Okay, we'll stop that. Okay, but seriously, they'll slow down a little bit, so I've got time to actually experience things and think more on stuff that I haven't told you guys a million times before, but I'll still give you stories occasionally as they happen organically. Anyway, for today's story, however, I do have one that I just naturally never actually got around to telling you yet, and it just so happens to be right around the holidays because this was for a Christmas trip my family took to the mountains. So one thing I haven't actually talked a whole lot with you guys about is that I actually really like skiing. My family did it a ton when I was growing up, and this particular story takes place many moons ago when I was just a wee little 13-year-old. My family took a holiday right around Christmas time up to the mountains for a ski trip. This is where I had a very interesting encounter. And when I mean interesting, I mean I almost died. Okay, maybe I'm being a little dramatic here. It didn't turn out as bad as possible, but I very well could have died because we were talking about a cougar and not the kind that wants a young man. So before we dive into our story, let me set the scene a little bit. The mountain pass, I don't quite remember the name of it, it's been years since I've gone, I was 13 at the time, but the mountain pass that we went to was absolutely gorgeous. It had this huge, comfy public lodge that was amazing to hang out in, and it had two of them. The one that was the main one down at the base of the slopes where everybody hung out, and then there was this really cool, newer, more high-tech lodge that was deeper in the mountains that you had to have a certain level of skiing or snowboarding expertise to even reach. That one was always nice to hang out because it wasn't nearly as crowded. Problem was you had to know what you were doing to get out there in the first place. And the thing is, I have been skiing for years. So muscle memory, I do have the skill, I do have the technique. The problem is my brain. I get spooked, just like with surfing or anything else that has to do with scary things of nature. Whether it be the ocean or the mountain, I don't care. I respect it and I fear it because I don't want to die. Problem is, that gets in my head, and I sort of forget the stuff I know, and I'm just scared. And it usually takes, honestly, the majority of the first day that I'm doing to relearn and regain my confidence so I'm back up to my proper skill level. I don't know why, it's just the way I work. Anyway, so the way my family is, my parents have been skiing for years, so they're naturally crazy good at it. My brother, he was a skateboarder and a surfer, he could do all that stuff, so naturally he picked up snowboarding super well, so he was crazy good. My sister was closer in skill level to me, however, she didn't take it super seriously because usually she would have her boyfriend with her and they would just goof around and not really focus so much on the skiing part. So anyway, the day starts out and we begin at the bunny slopes because here's a real life hack if you're new to skiing and you want a good deal. It's actually cheaper if you do the beginner lesson plan than it is to just straight up rent your gear and get a lift pass. Because you get the 90-minute lesson, which you can either go to or you can skip if you want. You do on the bunny slopes, and then you get a pass for the lift anyway, and your rental, and it's actually cheaper, so now you know. Anyway, we did our lesson, because I always like to take a refresher course, because again, I'd get all spooked all over again, and something about just having those basic fundamentals touched up on again every year right before I get back into it, it helped me. So me and my sister did it. My brother was like, nah, I ain't doing this. So he immediately took off to the back half of the mountain and he was gone. So, but my sister and I did the lesson, and while we were doing that, my parents were hanging out in the lodge having cocoa and stuff, getting ready for their day. Because it was early, all right? Those of you who ski, you know, to get the most out of the day, you get up there early, and your girl is not a morning person, okay? Anyway, we're doing our lesson, and by the time we're done, we're like, okay, let's hang around on the front trail for a while. So me, my sister, and her boyfriend are skiing around on the bunny slopes until I'm like, yep, I'm good, let's go. So we go up to the next beginner trail, which is the one, it's above the bunny slopes, so it's a little bit more difficult, but it's still pretty easy. As far as ski slopes go, if you're not familiar, they've got like a grading system where you've got like the green circle, which is Big Baby's Boo Boo Band-Aid. This is the really easy part. Then the blue square gets a little bit harder. It's still beginner friendly, but that's when you start to pick up speed and get more slopes. And then it just jumps all the way up until you finally get the black diamond and the double black diamond, which are the ones that, me personally, I look at it, I die. Okay, but that beginner trail was just a blue square. And that was the point where my parents got out and we took the low lift up to that first trail and we hung out there for a while, but they quickly got bored because, well, they're a lot more advanced in skiing than I am. And they're like, okay, you girls doing good? You gonna hang out? You gonna watch after each other? Now, at the time, my sister was 15 and I was 13, and they put her in charge of keeping an eye on me. Now, as a 13-year-old, I didn't think I need an eye kept on myself, and my sister, as a 15-year-old, she didn't want to keep an eye on me. She wanted to go hang out with her boyfriend off in the woods. So, that's what we ended up doing. My sister's like, you got yourself, you good? Y'all good, ready to go? I'm like, sure, I can do this by myself. I don't need nobody. So I'm like, sure, I'm all good. I got this. So she goes off to hang out back at the lodge again. And at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna go up to the next trail. I'm gonna go to the one, it was called Holiday. Holiday was one that was a blue square, but it had some patches that like picked up and got more advanced and had some faster slopes and things. I'm like, if I can run through Holiday, half a dozen times, no wipeouts, no big accidents, I get my confidence back up, I'm feeling good, then I can be confident enough to go out to join my parents and my brother in that second lodge up farther in the mountain, because that lodge up there, that's where all the trails are a lot more advanced. So I'm like, I have the skills. I know how to do this. I just need to build my confidence enough, because that's my problem, is my confidence. I harpoon myself. So I'm like, we're gonna do this. Plan in action. So I go up to the slope, I go down Holiday, and lo and behold, I'm remembering everything. It's going great. I'm having fun. Though, at the time, I wasn't thinking too much on it, but in hindsight, I was like, I noticed there weren't very many other people out there. At the time, I'm like, cool, I got it all to myself, this is super fun, because let's be honest, when you're on the ski slopes, the most dangerous thing is not the ski slopes. It's unattended children. I should be one to speak because I was a 13-year-old on the loose, but at least a 13-year-old is self-aware enough to not, go across skiers and, crash them. I have been wiped out by, a 4-year-old who was alone on the mountain. Where are your parents? Why are you here alone? But that's another story. Anyway, so I'm getting tired of Holiday, and at this point, I'm like, my confidence is good. I'm ready to go join my parents. And there are 2 ways to get to that second lodge. You can either go the really long way, which wraps along this really long and winding trail that gets you all the way up to the second lodge, or you can take the shortcut. The shortcut cuts through another trail, which is kind of winding around the mountain, so it intersects like this, and you would jump on the other trail for a short amount of time, and then you would veer to the left, and it would take you to the lodge. This other track was normally too advanced for me because it turns into a double black diamond. That being said, though, this small portion that connects you to the second lodge is just a blue square. It's very easy, nice and straight. The only thing that's scary and precarious about it is that it's kind of like a bridge, because on the one side it's a really high cliff, and on the other it's another cliff that's down and drops, so you've just got to go along this one stretch. But it's only for a short, very kind of short distance, then you'll veer to the left and go. If you veer to the right, don't veer to the right, because that's where it turns to a double black diamond. You look at it and you die. Anyway, though, I had been across this little shortcut before because I've gone with my families in years past after I already had my confidence build up. The name of this trail that the shortcut cuts through is called Cat Tracks. You'll never guess why. At the time, I did not know why it was called Cat Tracks. I learned the hard way. So normally this is not gonna be an issue because there's gonna be other skiers around, it's gonna be later in the day, but it was still early morning and I was pretty much alone out there, so that is kind of how this scenario got built up in the first place. So I'm ready to go to that back lodge, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming up on Cat Tracks. I can, veer off this way now to the shortcut, and then I can join my parents. It'll be great. So I get to that point, I veer off to the side, and I start going down Cat Tracks. Now, the thing about Cat Tracks, along with being that weird bridge shape, is it's also very forested. On that little bridge thing, there's lots of pine trees and brush all throughout the area, so you kind of got to be careful to avoid that on your way through the shortcut. Well, I get about halfway through the shortcut on Cat Tracks. I can see ahead of me where I have to veer to the left, because basically if you can make it to that point, it's a really sharp drop. You'll pick up speed and it'll take you right on up. You can just coast right up to the lodge. Problem is, I'm halfway there, I can see it ahead of me, and all of a sudden, I get this feeling in my gut. You know the one, it's like your intuition, that sixth sense, the hair on the back of your neck raises, you can feel yourself being watched, your body screaming, danger, danger, Will Robinson, and you're just like, okay, what's going on? So at this point, I'm still moving, but I'm kind of slower because, again, this area, it's kind of flat. It's a very mild slope, so you're not picking up very much speed unless you're literally taking your sticks and like pulling yourself forward, which I wasn't about because I was on high alert trying to be like, okay, why do I feel this way? What is going on? Sure enough, I look ahead slightly to the left towards the side with like the raised cliff wall. I see the source of that feeling in my gut. Sitting behind a tree, just kind of lounging lazily, is a full-grown cougar. At that point, I feel my heart drop out my butt. I'm like, oh my God, is today the day I die? Is this thing gonna eat me? So at this point, I'm moving slowly and I'm slowing down even more, panicking, because I'm 13 at this point in time. Like, oh my God, I do not want to become Kitty Chow. How do I get out of this situation? So I'm thinking, I'm looking at it. At this point, it's looking at me and I'm like, oh no. So then I have to start thinking, well, what are my options here? I could turn around, but the problem was, even though the slope was very light and very gradual, behind me was uphill. So I would be slow, I would be chunky, I would have to be trying to move up, and worst of all, my back would be to the cougar, which is the number one thing you don't want to do. I could take my skis off, but then again, I would be bending down and crouching down. You don't want to do around a cougar. It's gonna get you. So I'm like, well, the only thing I can really do is try to skirt around it and figure it out from there. Because again, the slope down here, it was like a cliff face. I could not go down that way. Cliff up that way, can't go that way. So the cougar's laying there, it's looking at me, I'm looking at it, we're both eyeballing each other. In hindsight, the nice thing is, it didn't have it like stalking behaviors, it didn't have that look on its face like it was hunting me, it wasn't crouching and moving. Like, I probably caught it off guard. It was having a lovely garden party, a beautiful morning out there on the mountain, and this dumb, lanky teenager comes bobbling along, and it's probably like, great, there goes the neighborhood. So I'm like, okay, well, the only thing I can do is keep eye contact with it. Steadily and slowly move, giving it as wide a berth as possible. So I'm getting like right up to the edge of this cliff here, and I'm slowly, steadily moving, looking at it, trying to make myself look as big as possible with my sticks and everything, and I'm just like, oh God. Thankfully, your girl's big. I'm 5'9". I was already pretty tall as a 13-year-old, so at least I wasn't like this tiny, appetizing little morsel. So I'm keeping eyes on this cat, and it's keeping eyes on me. I'm going. Its body language is not changing. It's still sitting there staring at me like, what you gonna do? I'm like, okay, keep going. But now I get to this point where I'm like one-on-one with it, and then it dawns on me. What do I do now? Because if I keep going this way, my back is gonna be to it. That's the same problem as before. Yes, I'm closer now to the turnoff, where if I could just get there, I could zip downhill, but like, how fast are cougars? Like, if it wanted to chase me, it could just like get me, right? And I'm sweating, I'm thinking, okay, God, what do I do? What do I do? I'm still looking at it, and fortunately, I didn't have to make a decision because Big Kitty decided it was done looking at me. I ruined its morning. I ruined its brunch. It was gonna go off and find some other place to relax. It got up and I'm like, I'm gonna die. Oh my God. But it did not come for me. It looked at me, gave me kind of that cat judgment. It's funny, no matter how big the cat judgment is a thing there. It gave me that cat judgment, turned around, with the biggest, fluffiest tail I've ever seen. Oh my God. Oh, murder kitty, you're cute. But turns around and then with like no problem, with perfect ease, it just starts scaling that tall cliff and going up. And I'm like, what? I couldn't climb, but it's just going on its way, like weaving up that cliffside there. And so I'm standing there for a while going, you're trying to trick me. I won't trust you. You're trying to trick me into going so you can get me. But about 5 minutes passed. No sign of Kitty coming back. It just went on its way. At that point, I finally was able to breathe, and I'm like, okay, we just gotta get there. So very carefully, I start moving. No signs of movement, nothing. It's nowhere to be seen. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I take off. I go down that slope, and I'm like, it's gonna get me. I keep looking over my shoulder, but like not too much because I don't want to like wipe out and crash, because then it'll come out and get me. But I get to the slope. I go. No sign of the cougar. It really did just go on its merry way, and I coasted all the way down to that lodge. And then I get there, and my parents are surprised to see me. They're like, Katie, where's your sister? Where is she? Is she behind you? And I'm just like, no. Her and her boyfriend wanted to hang out in the lodge, and I thought I could hang out on my own. It's fine. There's a cougar out there. And at that point, they're just like, what? So, sorry, sis. But, to be fair, you were supposed to be watching me, so let's just say there were some talkings to that night. But, we all lived. And now I know why that trail is deemed cat tracks. Literally, it took me like 3 or 4 hours before I was ready to ski again. I literally just hung out in that back lodge. I was like, nope, can't make me go back out there. We're done. I mean, fortunately, later in the night, I got over it. I went out and skied again, but it was an ordeal. I needed some time to just sit by the fire and contemplate life as a 13-year-old. Anyway, clearly I'm still here. I didn't become Kitty Chow, and I'm able to share this story with you. It does have me curious, though. Have any of y'all had an experience like that? Like, what would be the best way to handle that situation, that precarious bridge thing? Like, to this day, I'm still not sure what would have been, like, the better thing to do if the cat hadn't gone on its own. Like, what is the right thing to do? Do y'all know? Have you ever been around a cougar or another predator, like a bear or a wolf or a badger? I don't know. Feel free to share in the comments below, because I'm genuinely curious, because I don't actually know the best thing to do in that situation, and that's probably not good. Anyways, that's all for today's story. I do hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate, a blessed Yule, anything else in between. Happy holidays, folks. I will catch you all next time, and until then, remember, stay creepy, everybody.